This is the end of our 4-part series. This morning we're dealing with the one portion or one part of the National Building Regulations we skipped on purpose. So we'll get the last bit done. And it's a bit of sadness around this because the National Building Regulations is only, part B is only the introduction to what we would like to do as plumbers. And then the main thing is that when we deal with SANS 10400 Part B, which we'll have a look at, that's where our work actually starts. So without further ado, let's get into that information. When we're looking at Part B drainage, Part B1 deals with the compulsory drainage of buildings. So in respect of any building, a suitable means of disposal of waterborne sewage is available. The owner of that building shall provide a drainage installation. So Part Q we dealt with the last time. Like I said, it's something that we're not too keen on, but it is unfortunately part of what we do. So where a sewer is or becomes available for the drainage of such a building, the owner of such a building shall at his own cost lay, alter or extend any drain serving such a building to terminate at a location and level as prescribed by the local authority for the connection to that sewer. So at his own cost, lay, in other words, if there was no waterborne drainage, you'll lay that. Alter could be altering it from an existing septic tank or conservancy tank to that waterborne point, and extend, in other words, if the sewer is only available at the lateral boundary or at the street or rear boundary, then your existing drainage will have to be extended that way at the owner's cost. In the case of an existing building, the local authority shall serve a notice in writing upon the owner, stating the period in which that connection shall be made. Otherwise, it's just going to be a long, drawn-out thing. So where connecting sewer has been provided to any site, the owner of that site shall cause the sewerage discharge from any building on that site to be conveyed. In other words, if you have an existing conservancy tank or septic tank and you do get a waterborne connection point, everything on that premises shall be connected to that new connection point. So where the owner of such a building fails to lay, alter or extend that drain in terms of sub-regulation 2, the local authority may lay, alter or extend that drain and recover the costs from the owner, provided the local authority shall, before carrying out the work, give a notice not less than 14 days. And then, very important as far as these regulations are concerned, any person who fails to comply with the requirements shall be guilty of an offense. This is part of the regulations and acts, so anything that you do not comply with becomes a problem. Then, the ever ongoing argument between architect and plumber or designer and builder, developer. P2 says the drainage installation in any building shall be designed and constructed that there's an adequate number of fixtures. In other words, we have enough enough fixtures and terminal fittings to provide for that population and class. Such an installation is capable of carrying the design load. It's capable of discharging into any common drain, connecting sewer or sewer provided to accept that discharge. All components and materials shall be watertight. No nuisance or danger will be caused as a result of the operations of such an installation. Any drain in such a system is of such a strength, having regard to the manner in which it's bedded, supported, that it's capable of sustaining the actions to which it may normally be subjected, and that it is, where necessary, protected against any drainage. All sanitary fixtures are located so that they are easily accessible to those persons that they are intended to serve, and any necessary inspection, cleaning, and maintenance required may be performed through means of access provided. So it's not, I don't want to see pipes in front of the door. I don't want to see an access from my driveway. Any inspection, cleaning, and maintenance required may be performed through means of access provided. Then Part 2 says that if you cannot do anything as stated in sub-regulation 1, the local authority will require a rational design by a competent person. and it will notify the owner in writing for its reasons, and then after that you'll have a competent person. In our case, sanitation is a engineer, and they would provide drawings that need to be approved by the local authority. P3, objectionable discharge. No person shall cause or permit sewage discharge from any fixture to enter any stormwater, sewer, excavated or constructed watercourse, and subject to the National Water Act, any river, stream, or natural watercourse, whether ordinarily dry or otherwise, or any street or other site. So you cannot discharge onto your neighbor's property. No person shall cause or permit stormwater to enter any drainage installation on any site. The local authority may, by notice in writing to the owner, execute at his own cost any precautionary measures required by the local authority to prevent any of these things contemplated in sub-regulation 1 and 2. So basically the long and short of it is there's no stormwater going into a drainage system, and there's nothing from a drainage system that goes into stormwater. No person shall, without the written permission of the local authority, discharge or cause the discharge of any water from a swimming pool, fountain, or reservoir, either directly or indirectly, onto any public street, public place, or onto any site that is not the site on which that pool, fountain, or reservoir is situated. So important to note, there's always this debate about running it onto the verge, putting it into stormwater. The requirement is very clear in 10252 that with approval, you will discharge over or into your drain, and normally over a gully. Once again, any person who contravenes or permits the contravention of any of the requirements in this sub-regulation shall have a notice served, and he will be guilty of an offence. P4, industrial effluent, that would be for the construction guys or the guys that deal with factories or do maintenance at factories, where any person has obtained approval to discharge into any drain, any liquid or solid matter other than soil or waste. There's an additional drainage or other installations, including storage, pre-treatment, metering installations are required by the local authority. That person shall submit any plans and details of that installation as required by the local authority. The installation contemplated in paragraph A shall be constructed in accordance with those requirements and shall be maintained in good working order. Any person who constructs an installation contemplated in sub-regulation 1, other than in accordance with that approval, shall be guilty of an offence. Example I like using in this case would be, we have got a Willard batteries in Kebega. So if they charge, or when they charge these batteries, there's acid involved, etc., etc. You cannot discharge that acid into the drainage system and then into the municipal sewer. Likewise, there'd be tanneries, there'd be other different types of industrial processes. Then they need to end up going into like the pre-treatment. They'd be in ponds or they'd be treated before they actually get discharged into the municipal sewage reticulation. Disconnections, where any soil fixture is permanently disconnected from any soil pipe, or where any soil pipe is permanently disconnected from any drain. The owner shall seal the opening to such a pipe or drain in such a manner that that disconnection will not be a danger to health. So it's not simply hacking the pipe off and backfilling a hole. We make sure that those things are watertight. Where any drain is permanently disconnected, any remaining part shall also be sealed by the owner of that drain. When any drainage installation is disconnected from a sewer, the local authority shall be notified in writing by the owner thereof within 30 days from the date of such a disconnection. You'll find the owners are normally very keen to let the council know when they've been disconnected or the drain's been disconnected, because then there would be no sewage charges allocated to that water consumption on that premises. So any person who contravenes any requirement of this regulation shall then be guilty of an offence. So you'll start picking up the pattern that these persons guilty of an offence, as far as the requirements of the Act and the regulations are concerned. That's where legislation starts. The application that we deal with comes further down the line, but basically if you transgress anything, that's how you'll get picked up, or that's the system that you'll use to get punished. Unless authorized by the local authority, under unauthorized drainage work, no person shall in any manner interfere with a sewer or connecting sewer. It's municipal infrastructure. You need to be an appointed agent to work on any municipal infrastructure. No person shall break into or interfere with any part of a drainage installation other than that for the purpose of repair and maintenance. And any person who carries out or permits the carrying out of this unauthorized work shall be guilty of an offence. And then the last one out of the lot, one that gets skipped regularly by choice, any inspections and testing of drainage installation, any drain, discharge pipe or ventilating pipe shall be installed as to be capable of withstanding the test pressures in PP 26 and PP 27, as the case may be, contained in 10 Part P, and such a test shall be carried out in the presence of the building control officer or other officer duly authorized by the local authority. Any equipment, material or labor required for that inspection or that testing contemplated in Part P of these regulations shall be made available by the person installing such a pipe or drain. So not all auditors and municipal inspectors are kind enough to bring their own tools. So the requirement is that that person installing the drain, requiring the test to be done, shall provide all the necessary tools. No person shall put into use any drainage installation before such an installation has been inspected, tested, and passed by the local authority as complying with these regulations. Just a quick note on number 3, if we read the whole thing, inspected is one component, tested is another component, and passed is a completely different setup. Sometimes we get to site and you'll say, or the contractor or the developer will tell you the municipality's been there, they've done the inspection, and then when you inquire as to the outcome of these things, you'll find that they actually failed on the pressure test, or they failed on the bore test, or it wasn't according to plan. So important to note that it needs to be inspected, tested, and actually passed by the local authority as complying with these regulations. And once again, any person who contravenes the requirement of sub-regulation 3 shall be guilty of an offence. So herein lies the conundrum as a plumbing contractor. If Mrs. Jones has paid you to do a drainage and she's appointed you, she's paid you to do the work, and council get to their premises and they would like to charge them, or they would like to charge them with contravening sub-regulation 3. I'd hate to have a show of hands, but you'd find that very few of your clients are actually going to take the can on your behalf. You'll be getting the phone call saying, I've appointed you, you are the professional, competent person on site as far as my plumbing and drainage is concerned. You are responsible, you were responsible to have this drainage tested. So just bear that in mind. Inspected, tested, and passed. Then the building regulations Part P referred to 10-400 Part P. I'm not going to go into detail. It's quite a big document. But there's currently work afoot that's going at a snail's pace, but there is work afoot on changing a couple of things in this actual standard. So for the application of the building regulations, which we've just looked at, Part P drainage, you'll find that the scope of this document is deemed to satisfy requirements for compliance with Part P of the National Building Regulations. In other words, if you do what this document asks you to do, you will be complying with Part P, which we've just looked at for the last 10-15 minutes or so. So important to note that you need to comply with the entire document. You cannot pick and choose little bits and pieces. You need to comply with the entire Part P of the building regulations. Just a quick touch base on 10-400 Part P. the document starts off with definitions. We all too often, myself included, we do a report, or we do reports, or we do feedback on inspections, and we end up getting references to older versions of a standard, or we get terminology incorrect. There's a reason why every standard starts with definitions. So just to run through a couple of these, you'll find acceptable and adequate. You'll find most of those would be in the opinion of the local authority, so there'd be no arguments around that. You guys can go through this on your own, or you could access some of this terminology from the standards. Basically, you'll see there's a difference between a branch drain and a branch discharge. The one is soil and vent, and the one is underground drainage. And you can work your way through this whole document. There's the competent person. This is a generic definition. So if we go to the actual one that says sanitation, a competent person sanitation, in other words, the guy that's got to do the rational design, etc., is registered in terms of the Engineering Profession Act as either an engineer, or sorry, a professional engineer or a professional engineering technologist. So then tertiary qualification in either civil or mechanical, or it is or he or she would generally recognized as, or can furnish proof of having the necessary experience and training. So we'll have a look at some of these terms. Some of them are terminology or terms that we use regularly or almost daily. And then they're the ones that the definition of a drainage installation. If you look at that, it includes everything underground, but excludes the two bends or the bends at the foot of the stack. You need to be very careful when you distinguish between these different points. Fixture units. It's an arbitrary unit of measure expressing loads. So if you look at the loads, you'll find any 40 mil, any 32 mil trap is 1 unit, 40 mil traps is 2, wall mounted urinals 5, and then you get toilets will be 8. So these would be the ones that you add together to see if the drain is capable of accepting the flow that is actually being deposited or being discharged into it. So it's all part of the standard. It's not something that is new, or it's not something that has been added recently. Basically, it boils down to making sure that we get all the information. And when we as competent professionals do reports, or you are asked to do a report on work done by someone else, or on behalf of a competent person, engineer, or on behalf of a developer, or you need to motivate why certain things were done on a premises that you worked on, then we need to make sure that this is the document that would be used to actually reference, or this would be the document used to assess your report, or to, I don't know if Mr. Brown has since joined us. He's one of those OCD people that if you get a reference wrong, or you get a reference to a standard wrong, then you first get a lashing and then you get told to go find the right one. So it would be better to actually just start with the right one from the word go. Sorry, the difference between an inspection eye and a rodding eye, you'll find that the inspection eye does not, to which permanent access after completion need not be provided. That would be an inspection eye underground on the drainage. A rodding eye you need to have permanently accessible. Manholes, inspection chambers. A manhole is exactly what it is there. It would allow a man to get into that hole. In other words, allow entry for that person, where an inspection chamber would be something that you would just use to get access onto or into a drainage system. One pipe system, above ground soil and vent. You'll see that if we go into the detail here, it says that a common discharge pipe in which trap venting or other venting that is required may be via, so you need back venting or you need venting on that one pipe system, but not necessarily on a single stack system. Percolation rate for the guys we spoke about, non-waterborne drainage last time around. It is still required in areas that are not serviced, but if we are going to be doing it, we need to make sure there are formulas that you need to actually do the percolation rate to do the calculation to see the size of the soakaway or the French drain or the evaporative bed, whichever term you want to use, that you need to have that information at hand. So prefabricated septic tank, I don't have to tell you, but it's not a water tank. Gents, it is, or ladies, gents and ladies, it is a specific underground tank that's suitably reinforced for the acceptance of sewage. Range would also be for above ground. Rational assessment and design, that would be done by that competent person. In other words, making sure that they do the flow rates, that they do the fixture ratings, or they do the calculations on the fixture ratings. Anything to do with these assessments and designs will be done by that person. Roddinger, there we go. We need to have permanent access to that specific component. A sanitary fixture, important could be anything. It's a receptacle to which water is permanently supplied and from which waste or soil is discharged. So it encompasses, if the standard starts talking about a sanitary fixture, then it could be anything, whether it be soil, waste, whatever, it is included in that term. Sanitary group, also soil and vent, where we have a group being a residential premises, and you'll find that that'll be a full set of fixtures that would be normally used in residential. Self-cleaning trap is a requirement for a specific. Single stack is a particular one-type system of which trap vents are not required in terms of specific criteria. So if you look at our LMS system or you look at our IOPSA YouTube, you'll find that there are 13 requirements for you to comply with a single stack system. Then that would be the specific criteria that you need to have a single stack system done properly. So then we have, like I say, some of these you'll use on a daily basis. Some of them are less frequently used, but we need to be aware, we need to be made aware, or our clients need to be made aware of very specific requirements for very specific applications. So stub stack, very interesting. You'll find that the definition of a stub stack says a straight 100 millimeter diameter discharge stack, not more than one story, in other words, ground floor only, with a rodding eye at the top, not a 50 millimeter vent, not a cover or a IE bend. It says that you need a straight 100 millimeter stack is not more than one floor with a rodding eye at the top. So you can make up your mind on what you have been doing and what you need to change. Suitable is a generic term that you could have anything, but the capable of fulfilling or having fulfilled the intended function or fit for that specific purpose. There's a lot of drainage material that not necessarily have a standard or a spec, but it could be considered for suitable for that purpose. The Act, the one that we've been dealing up to now, is the NBR, is the National Building Regulations and Standards Act. A trap is a fitting or a fixture which is designed to retain a water seal, 75 mil for a basin and 50 mil for a toilet. You would be able to connect that to a single stack. Trap vent, something you don't see that often, two-pipe system. Also soil and vent, if you look at 10-400 Part P, it would be for buildings that have got long runs or that do hospitals, etc., where you actually have to separate the soil and the waste and run them into two separate lines to get them to the outside of the building. Vent pipe, a couple of requirements on, there's another YouTube video on the LMS. You guys can look at venting there. There's a 7 or 8 requirements with regards to venting. So a vent pipe would lead to open air, not a little puff pipe that ends up in a building or that ends up in a specific little enclosure. It is open air is the requirement. Waste fixture is a sanitary fixture from which wastewater is discharged. Waste pipe would be the pipe from that fixture. Wastewater is the one that would have no soil, no industrial effluent, and no stormwater. So only wash and basin, shower, bath, nothing else. Water seal, we spoke about it earlier. That would be the water in a trap that acts as a barrier. In other words, between the actual U-trap there and the outlet of that pipe, that is the actual trap or the depth of the trap. So then just quickly in wrapping up as far as drainage is concerned, guys, 10400 part SANS 10400 part P is the document that the municipality would use, or the local authority, the BCO, whatever you want to call them in your own time. Some people call them weird and wonderful names. The point is that this is the document that is used to assess your work. So the functional regulation P2, in other words, the design of the building, contained in Part P of the National Building Regulations shall be deemed to satisfied where the drain complies with 4.2 to 4.27. So all-inclusive, you can see there's basically 27 rules that you need to comply with as far as drainage is concerned. Or it's the subject of a rational design or an assessment performed by a competent person, sanitation. Take note, no architects, no technologists, or sorry, no architectural technologists, no plumbers, no one else. It says competent person, sanitation. The definition says you'll be an engineer or an engineering technologist. Or it's the subject of an agreement certificate, and the system element or component is used within the scope, conditions, and limitations prescribed in that certificate. As explained earlier, you'll find that these things have specific requirements, and if you can't meet all of them, your agreement certificate is basically null and void. So just to wrap up, 4.2 starts with the material that you need to use for that specific installation, and it ends up with 427. And as per 10 for us, the National Building Regulations P7, PP26 and PP27 are the two portions currently on your screen. Guys, just keep safe out there, keep yourselves informed, and remember, for the guys that are out there working away, if you feel uncomfortable with doing something or something does not feel right, 9 out of 10 times you'll find that your first instinct would be correct. Contact your local IOPSA technical guys. We've got a national technical up in Gauteng, so if you don't feel comfortable, you're an IOPSA member, you've got the fullest right to actually just contact your local IOPSA and say, I need assistance. If all else fails, you can get hold of myself, Steve, anyone. We're there 99% of the day to sort out your problems. So other than that, keep safe, keep doing what you're doing well.